somewhere between 1939 and 1984. 10 different artists sat across from a label executive, a government agent, a preacher, or their own manager, and were told the exact same thing in different words, that if they released this song, everything they had built would be gone. Every single one of them recorded it anyway, and what happened next rewrote the rules of what R&B music was allowed to say, sound like, and stand for, permanently. Today on Rhythm Origins, we're counting down 10 R&B artists who were warned this song would end their career. And we're saving number 1 for the artist whose refusal to stop performing a single song made a sitting United States government official so furious, he had her framed, jailed, and stripped of her ability to perform for the rest of her life. Number 10. It's Your Thing. The Isley Brothers, 1969. When the Isley Brothers walked away from Motown Records in 1969 to record on their own independent T-neck label, virtually everyone in the music industry told them they had just committed professional suicide, because leaving the most powerful black-owned record label in America to go independent without a major distribution deal behind you was not a career move. It was a career funeral. The label machinery that had built acts like The Temptations, The Four Tops, and Stevie Wonder into international stars was the same machinery every black artist in the industry wanted access to, and the Isleys had just walked out of the building and locked the door behind them. It's Your Thing was the record they made to prove the industry wrong. A driving, defiant funk soul groove with Ronald Isley's vocals sitting on top of a tight, aggressive rhythm section that felt nothing like the polished Motown formula the industry expected from them. And that rawness, that deliberate roughness, was exactly the point. The song hit number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 and went to number 1 on the R&B chart. Earned the brothers a Grammy Award for Best Rhythm and Blues Vocal Performance by a Duo or Group, and became the foundation of a creative independence that the Isley Brothers would leverage for the next 2 decades to become one of the most consistently successful acts in the history of soul, funk, and R&B. The irony that gets glossed over in most retellings is that the same industry gatekeepers who said they were finished were the same ones later chasing them with contract offers after the record moved units without a single dollar of Motown machinery behind it. This was the moment the Isley Brothers stopped asking the industry for permission and started building something that belonged entirely to them. And It's Your Thing was the flag they planted to mark the exact spot where that decision became permanent. Number 9. Love to Love You Baby. Donna Summer, 1975. When Neil Bogart, president of Casablanca Records, first heard the 17-minute extended version of Love to Love You Baby that Donna Summer had recorded in Europe with producer Giorgio Moroder, he played it at a party in his home in Los Angeles in 1975. And the initial reaction from radio executives in the room was not excitement, it was alarm, because the track featured Summer simulating extended physical climax for the majority of its running time, with a level of directness no mainstream R&B or pop record had ever attempted before. American radio programmers told Casablanca directly that the song would never reach mainstream airplay. that the sexual content would get it banned across the country, and that putting an unknown artist's voice on a record that explicit was an almost certain way to kill her commercial potential before she'd had a chance to build any. Summer herself has said in interviews that she was nervous about the song's reception. Having recorded the provocative vocal performance almost on a dare from Marauder, barely expecting the demo to become an actual commercial release, Casablanca released the 3.5-minute edited version anyway, and the song reached number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100, spent 20 weeks on the chart, went top 5 in multiple countries, and launched Donna Summer into a commercial and cultural trajectory that would make her the defining voice of the disco era for the next decade. The full 17-minute album version was pressed on 12-inch vinyl and became one of the best-selling extended singles in history, precisely because the explicit content that radio programmers said would kill it was the exact thing that made it a word-of-mouth phenomenon in every club from New York to London. 22 radio stations eventually banned the edited version anyway. And it didn't matter even slightly, because by the time the bans were announced, the record had already changed the sound of everything that came after it. Number 8. I Want Your Sex, George Michael, 1987. When George Michael delivered I Want Your Sex to Epic Records in 1987, as the lead single from his debut solo album Faith, the title alone was enough to set off alarms at BBC Radio, which banned the song from its playlists immediately and announced publicly that the sexual content was inappropriate for broadcast, making George Michael the first major pop star of the decade to have a lead single banned by the most influential radio network in the English-speaking world before the album it was meant to promote had even been announced. American radio stations followed with similar reluctance, with many refusing to play it in standard rotation, some allowing it only after 9 o'clock at night, and a small number agreeing to play it only if the word sex was stripped from the title in their listings, a compromise that George Michael did not find particularly funny. What made the ban simultaneously absurd and commercially important was that the song itself was not remotely about anything more explicit than what any number of love ballads from the same era were describing in coded language. But the directness of its title in a cultural moment when the AIDS epidemic was generating enormous anxiety about the public discussion of sexuality at all made the industry's reaction far more extreme than the song's actual content warranted. The BBC ban lasted for the duration of the song's initial chart run, but it could not stop I Want Your Sex from reaching number 2 in the UK and number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the United States, despite the radio restrictions. And the controversy surrounding the ban generated more press coverage and audience curiosity than any standard promotional campaign for a debut solo single could have bought, making it one of the most effective unintentional marketing disasters in the history of 90s R&B and pop crossover music. George Michael performed the song anyway, talked about it in every interview, and Faith went on to become the first album by a white solo artist to hit number 1 on the Billboard Black Albums chart, with Michael himself winning the Grammy for Album of the Year in 1989. Number 7. My Prerogative, Bobby Brown, 1988. Bobby Brown was told, by the music industry, in approximately as many words, that a teenage black male solo artist with an abrasive public image, a reputation for confrontational interviews, and no group behind him to soften his edges, was not a commercially viable proposition in 1988. And My Prerogative was his direct, unambiguous, on-record response to every single one of those people, including, very openly, the former New Edition bandmates he had just left behind, and the critics who had publicly declared his solo debut King of Stage a commercial disappointment that confirmed he had made a mistake walking away from the group. The song's opening spoken section made his intentions completely transparent by addressing his critics directly before a single note of the production kicked in. And MCA Records, his label at the time, had genuine internal conversations about whether a lead single built entirely around a public argument with his former associates and his detractors would read to radio programmers and mainstream audiences as confident and relatable, or as petty and self-destructive at a commercial level. The fear was not irrational either. Plenty of artists had torpedoed second album campaigns by making the record about their beef instead of their music. And Bobby Brown was not yet established enough as a solo commercial force to absorb that kind of misstep without serious damage. My Prerogative reached #1 on both the Billboard Hot 100 and the R&B chart, stayed at #1 for 3 weeks, and became the foundation of the Don't Be Cruel album campaign that sold over 8 million copies in the United States alone, winning Brown the Grammy for Best Male R&B Vocal Performance in 1989 and making him one of the defining male R&B voices of the late 80s. All by making exactly the record his label was most afraid of, delivered with exactly the confrontational energy that the industry said would be his commercial undoing. The spoken intro that opened My Prerogative and addressed his critics by name is now one of the most sampled and referenced moments in the entire era of New Jack Swing. #6, Waterfalls, TLC, 1995. When TLC brought Waterfalls to Clive Davis, the head of Arista Records, his response was direct and unflattering. He told them it was too deep, that radio audiences wouldn't connect with a song addressing the AIDS epidemic and drug-related street violence through an R&B ballad format. And that after the massive success of Creep and Red Light Special, he was not interested in gambling the momentum of their campaign on a message song that he genuinely didn't think the mainstream was ready to hear. Davis's instinct was not without commercial logic, because Crazy Sexy Cool was already triple platinum before Waterfalls was even considered as a single. Meaning the argument for playing it safe with something less thematically heavy was a reasonable business position rather than a purely cynical one. But TLC disagreed entirely, because Left Eye had brought the song to T-Boz and Chili, specifically because she believed it was the most important thing they could say, at the exact moment they had the commercial platform to say it. The pushback from Davis forced TLC to go around him directly to L.A. Reid, the co-founder of LaFace Records, and T-Boz has told this story in multiple documented interviews. They wrote the words, "Please believe in us," on a large piece of poster board, with a marker, and physically delivered it to Reid's office, asking him to greenlight the video budget that Davis had withheld. Waterfalls spent 7 weeks at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, became the first #1 song in the chart's history to directly reference AIDS by name, won the MTV Video Music Award for Video of the Year in 1995, beating out Michael Jackson's Scream in the process, and making TLC the first black artist to win that award. and the poster that Left Eye wrote and handed to L.A. Reid still exists. Reportedly hanging somewhere in the LaFace Records archive as one of the more tangible artifacts of a creative battle that produced one of the defining cultural documents of the entire decade. Number 5, End of the Road, Boyz II Men, 1992. When Boyz II Men recorded End of the Road in 1992 for the Eddie Murphy comedy film Boomerang, it was commissioned as a soundtrack contribution, rather than a career-defining single, written and produced in a matter of days by L.A. Reid and Babyface, specifically for the movie's closing scene, with no particular expectation from the label or the filmmakers that the song would become anything more than a pleasant closer on a commercial soundtrack release. The context of a movie tie-in single in 1992 was not the high-profile launch platform it might have been in another era. Soundtrack songs lived and died by whether the film itself generated cultural heat, and while Boomerang was a successful Eddie Murphy vehicle, nobody at Motown or LaFace Records was positioning End of the Road as the kind of record that would rewrite the history books. The four men who made up Boyz II Men, Wanya Morris, Michael McCary, Nathan Morris, and Sean Stockman, were talented. Their harmonies were extraordinary. And their debut album, Cooley High Harmony, had already produced the #1 hit, It's So Hard to Say Goodbye to Yesterday. But even with that foundation, the internal projection for a ballad written for a movie nobody associated with groundbreaking music was modest by any commercial standard. End of the Road reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and stayed there for 13 consecutive weeks, breaking Elvis Presley's record for the longest-running #1 single in the chart's entire 40-year history. At that point, becoming the fastest record to achieve that milestone since the chart's inception, and remaining one of the most commercially dominant singles of the entire 1990s decade. And it was a B-side soundtrack cut that nobody put their full promotional weight behind until it had already done the work itself, which makes it one of the most spectacularly underestimated recordings in the history of the Motown label. Number 4, I Will Always Love You, Whitney Houston, 1992. When Whitney Houston decided to record I Will Always Love You for the 1992 film The Bodyguard, she was not working with original material. She was covering a song that Dolly Parton had already recorded twice and turned into a country classic. First in 1974, and again in 1982, meaning that the industry context for Houston's version was a comparison she could not win by any conventional standard, and a benchmark that most producers in the room advised her not to attempt to surpass. The specific creative choice that made her version different from Parton's, and the one that generated the most internal debate during production, was Houston's decision to open the song entirely a cappella before the arrangement came in. An unaccompanied vocal entrance that stripped away every production safety net and placed her voice alone in the room with the listener for the first several seconds of one of the most anticipated film soundtrack recordings of the year, with nothing underneath it to carry or support her if the moment didn't land. Producer David Foster and the team around her had a collective held breath about that choice, and the concern was real. An a cappella opening on a major film soundtrack single in 1992 was not standard practice. and the argument for adding production underneath her from the first note was a reasonable one that several people in the studio made before the final decision was locked. Houston insisted on the a cappella opening, insisted on the gospel-rooted key change that turned the last chorus into something beyond what any contemporary arrangement of the Parton original had ever attempted. And I Will Always Love You spent 14 weeks at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Broke the record for the best-selling single by a female artist in history at the time. Won the Grammy Award for Record of the Year in 1994. And is now studied in music production programs, specifically as a case study in what happens when a vocalist refuses to let production decisions reduce the emotional ceiling of what their voice is capable of doing. Number 3, Sexual Healing. Marvin Gaye, 1982. By the winter of 1981, the music industry had quietly written Marvin Gaye off in every way that mattered. He had been dropped from Motown Records after 20 tumultuous years, was hiding in Ostend, Belgium to escape $4 million in IRS tax debt he had no means to pay, was in the grip of a cocaine addiction serious enough that people around him were genuinely unsure whether he would survive it. Had been through 2 costly divorces that had stripped away most of what he'd earned over his entire career, and had not scored a commercially significant hit in roughly 5 years. Making him, by every conventional industry metric, a 42-year-old washed-up artist with no label, no money, no country he could safely return to, and no realistic path back to relevance in an R&B landscape that had moved on entirely without him. It had been around 5 years since Gaye had scored a hit of any magnitude, and the people in the industry who knew his situation in detail were not talking about his comeback. They were talking about the cautionary tale his career had become. When CBS Records eventually agreed to negotiate a deal with him, the internal hesitation was real. Signing a broke, drug-dependent, tax-fugitive artist in his 40s who hadn't had a hit in half a decade was not a straightforward business proposition, and CBS agreed to sign him and help clear his financial debt, and spent a year negotiating, a year in which the outcome was genuinely uncertain, and the argument for walking away from the deal entirely was available to the label at multiple points. American songwriter Last.fm, Gaye and Odell Brown, one of his longtime friends and backing musicians, had put together a slinky mid-tempo piece of music in a Belgian studio, and the title and lyrical concept came from music journalist David Ritz, who was in Ostend working on Gaye's autobiography when he looked around the room and told him plainly that what he needed was some sexual healing, a phrase Gaye immediately recognized as the most honest description of both his personal state and his artistic comeback that anyone had offered him in years. Upon hearing the demo, CBS subsidiary Columbia Records signed Gaye to a 3-album deal.
Yes, thank you very kindly, ladies and gentlemen.
But the deliberate explicitness of a 42-year-old man returning from the professional dead with a record titled Sexual Healing was not universally embraced as brilliant strategy. Within the label, there were documented tensions about the direction of the album and whether Gaye's original vision of a deeply personal record about his drug recovery was more commercially viable than what his mentor, Harvey Fuqua, was pushing him toward.
20-some years to win an award such as this.
Which was something that fit the existing R&B landscape of 1982, rather than something that announced his return on his own terms. Sexual Healing became the best-selling song of Gaye's career, peaked at number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100, won the Grammy Award for Best R&B Song and Best Male R&B Vocal Performance in 1983.
We love you. Stay with us. We're going to try to give you more.
Made Gaye only the second artist in Billboard history to have a song chart at every position, from 1 to 100. and remains one of the most improbable commercial comebacks in the entire history of the genre. Built by a man the industry had declared finished, recorded in a foreign country he was hiding in, and delivered with an explicit directness that proved the only thing more dangerous than a desperate artist is one who has already lost everything and has nothing left to protect. Number 2. When Doves Cry, Prince, 1984. On the last night of mixing at Sunset Sound in Hollywood in 1984, Prince did something that his own engineer Susan Rogers and virtually everyone else in the room believed was a catastrophic mistake. He reached into the final mix of the song that was going to be the lead single from Purple Rain, the most anticipated release of his career, and he punched out the bass line entirely, leaving a track with no low-end foundation whatsoever, in an era when the bass groove was considered the single most non-negotiable element of any commercially viable R&B or funk record. Rogers later recalled that moment in a documented interview, saying Prince looked at her after he did it, smiled, and said, "Ain't nobody gonna believe I'd do this." Why do we scream at each other? Which was less a statement of confidence and more an acknowledgement that he understood exactly how insane it appeared, and was doing it anyway because he trusted his instinct over every conventional rule his band, his label, and the entire music industry of 1984 would have used to argue him out of it. Prince's own manager at the time, Rob Cavallo, expressed doubt that When Doves Cry would be a hit, specifically because it didn't have a bass line. And Prince's bassist Brown Mark has said in interviews that he initially thought the choice meant he was being replaced, before Prince personally explained that it was an artistic decision rather than a personnel one. The bass track still exists on the multi-track tape. It was recorded and then deliberately muted, meaning Prince did not fail to write a bass line. He wrote one and then made the conscious, documented choice to remove it because he believed the song was more emotionally powerful without it. When Doves Cry became Prince's first #1 single on the Billboard Hot 100, stayed there for 5 consecutive weeks, was voted Best Single of 1984 by both the Village Voice's Paz and Jop poll and Billboard's year-end ranking, is ranked number 37 on Rolling Stone's list of the 500 greatest songs of all time, and was the top-selling single in the entire United States for the calendar year 1984. All without a bass line, all built on the deliberate removal of the one element every expert in the room told him he could not take away and still have a hit record. Number 1. Billie Jean, Michael Jackson, 1983. In early 1983, MTV was barely 2 years old. Its playlist was 99% white rock artists, by the documented account of industry insiders. And when Michael Jackson's team submitted the music video for Billie Jean, a song that had already reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and was simultaneously the best-selling solo single on the planet, MTV executives responded with 2 words that the Jackson estate would later describe as representative of a level of cultural apartheid that is difficult to imagine today: They said it was not their audience. The phrase "not their audience" was MTV's official internal justification for a policy that had kept black artists out of the channel's rotation since its founding in 1981. A policy that had already been publicly called out by David Bowie in a live on-air confrontation with an MTV VJ that the network had tried to dismiss as a misunderstanding, and a policy that was so entrenched that even a song sitting at #1 in America, made by the most recognizable music star on earth, was not enough to move it. CBS Records president Walter Yetnikoff, the man who ran the label that Michael Jackson recorded for, made a phone call after the rejection that has since been documented in the Jackson estate's own public statements, in industry oral histories, and in Yetnikoff's own memoir. He told MTV, in explicit and colorful terms that have been quoted in every serious music history of the period, that he would pull every single CBS artist off the network's playlist permanently and go to the press to announce the reason publicly if Billie Jean was not put into heavy rotation. MTV relented. The video premiered on March 10, 1983. And what happened over the following months was not just a commercial event, but a structural realignment of the entire American music industry. In the first quarter of 1984, after Michael Jackson's 3 Thriller-era videos had aired in heavy rotation on a channel that had previously refused to play black artists, MTV recorded its first quarterly profit after nearly losing its parent company's support entirely. Meaning the channel that told Michael Jackson's team that a #1 record by the biggest star in the world was not their audience, was financially rescued from cancellation by the music it had refused to play. Billie Jean stayed at #1 for 7 weeks on the Billboard Hot 100. The Thriller album became the best-selling album in history, and the Jackson estate's statement on the death of Walter Yetnikoff in 2021 called his intervention the moment the wall came tumbling down, opening the door not just for Michael Jackson, but for every black artist who followed him onto a platform that had been built on their music and culture while keeping them out of the room where the money was being made.